Today you'll see a beautiful sundress with a really special neckline. Look at this, so pretty. And there's one that's simpler to do as well. Hi sewing friends, my name's Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and I've had a lot of fun in the last couple of days making two garments. They come from the same pattern, and this is brand new from pattern Emporium. It's called Go With The Flow dress, and it's super pretty. It's a sundress, it's easy to fit. The silhouette of the dress is a swing style, it just swings out like that. And we've got straps. The straps, you can make them thin, 1/2 inch, or you can make them wider, 3/4 of an inch. You can make those fixed. To make them fixed, you need a ring here at the back, or you can make a ring with fabric. And then at the front, you can have it fixed, or you can do adjustables with rings and sliders and things like that. I never do adjustable, nothing when I'm sewing, because I know the length I want it for myself. Would be different if I was making it for someone else so that they could adjust. But because I sew for me, I never use the adjustable option, but the instructions are there. If you have the notions and you want to do that, that could be fun if you like that. There's 2 official lengths on the pattern piece, but you can make it whatever you want. There's a mini length that would be a couple of inches above the knee, and then maxi. But in between, you can measure and cut your own length. For my dress, I made it a bit longer than the mini length because I didn't want a mini dress. And then I went rogue and I made a top as well, which is super easy to do. I just shortened it. Otherwise, everything up here is the same. The neckline, 2 options. One is a little more simple to sew than the other. They're really pretty. Now, the most simple version is a square neckline over here, and then it curves like that. But it's not the main fabric. It's a yoke piece that's double right there that you sew on. In between there, you have the straps and the little strap with a ring at the back. For the V neckline, the yoke follows that shape. So you end up with a V like this, like that, and the fabric underneath following the same shape. So you end up having to sew 6 V points, 3 in the front, 3 in the back. Can take a little bit longer, needs a little bit more precision, but it can certainly be done. And I think it's absolutely striking. Now, the third option for the neckline is for you to combine them. So you can do the V1 on the front, the square neckline on the back, and then you get only 3 V points in the front and none at the back. If you want to and you're sewing a long dress, you can add inseam pockets. There are marks there for you to add them in right there. These are the types of pockets that are just going to hang inside and touch your thighs and move around. They're not anchored onto anything. If you like pockets, they are there. I like the method that she's doing the pockets. It's really neat method. I like that. It's just that I don't like pockets, so I'm not adding pockets into mine. One fitting feature that you have available is a buster for a full bust adjustment option. I'll talk about how you should choose that one, but I love that. I love that there's a dart there. I've chosen that option. If your print is non-directional, you can place your pieces like this and overlap them a little bit on the narrower parts. The only way to be able to do that, to use less fabric, is to have a center back seam. So I'm really happy that this pattern has a center back seam as part of the pattern. I've done that with my dress, and it certainly saved me a lot of fabric in trying to get both of these on the fold. They start narrow here, but then they go out quite wide. So center back seam is a big thumbs up from me. Now, for my top version, because I used less fabric for that and the pieces were smaller, I was able to cut the back on the fold, and all I did was fold away the seam allowance, and then that was it. But for the dress, I think you definitely need that center back seam. Because the Go With The Flow dress is a brand new pattern at Pattern Emporium, it's 15% off. This goes through Monday the 9th of March at noon over in Australia. If you're over here on this side of the world, it's going to be on the Sunday 8th of March in the afternoon. There's a lot of other patterns that are also 15% off, toppers that can go with your dress. Some cardigans, some jackets. I have already made some of them and have video tutorials on them. So check all of this out, 15% off. I'll leave you my affiliate link at the top of the comment section, pinned, easy to find. Also in the description box. If you do end up clicking on my link and it takes you to the website and you purchase, I do receive a small commission back from the designer. One of the ways I make an income creating helpful content here on YouTube that you can watch. For fabrics, you need lightweight woven fabrics. I would say my first options would be the drapey type of fabrics, rayon, all types of rayon, rayon twill, rayon crepe, rayon sateen, rayon linen blend would be amazing, but I would stick with the blends that have more rayon than linen. For example, 70% rayon, 30% linen, that's a common one to find. Where I live, it's really easy to find rayon 87%, linen 13%. So I would stick to blends that the majority is rayon if you're doing a rayon linen blend. Then you have tencel twill, you have tencel, crepe, silk, all those types of fabrics. If you want the structured fabrics, it's not that you can't use them, it's just that it's going to look different. You use a lightweight cotton lawn because the dress is a swing style and it goes out like that. It's just going to stand away from the body and not flow beautifully because those fabrics, even if lightweight, just don't have that amazing drape that the first group of fabrics have. So for the style of the dress, anything that's swing style, I would always go with the rayon and the likes. I would not use the structured ones, but that's just my personal preference, you know, what I like. What I have done though with my dress version is a mixed media situation. I have a beautiful rayon here for the dress so that it flows beautifully, but I've done the yoke in a contrasting leftover rayon linen fabric, rayon 70%, linen 30%. And on the inside layer, I used cotton. So it was really easy to work with constructing the yoke and everything. This area, of course, doesn't need to flow. You know, it holds up the whole dress. So I think mixing the two fabrics there was really good. The other one I made is completely rayon twill. But both of my rayons are a little heavier than the typical plain rayon. They're, I would say, light to medium weight, and I chose them because of the print. And for the dress, I chose it for the lack of sheenness, which you have to be careful with. Other notions you need are rings, smaller rings if you're doing the thin straps, bigger rings if you're doing the wider straps. The way that you do these straps doesn't require you to have any interfacing, but for my V neckline dress, I did interface some sections, so I used small amounts of fusible interfacing there, but that's just something I did as extra. Fabrics, I would say absolutely not. I knit fabrics. You will not be able to get the precision and this neckline to look good with knit fabrics. So I would just say make it in a woven fabric. That's what it's designed for. But specifically some woven fabrics that I would not use are denim, cotton twill, cotton sateen, medium weight, heavier fabrics. It would just feel uncomfortable and just look completely like that coming out of your body. So I would stay away from those. If you're enjoying the content and it's helpful for you, tap on that like button. It's the best thing you can do to support my channel. Sizing 4 to 30 Australian, goes up to a 58 and 3/4 inch here. When you plot your measurements down there, it's really important to measure your high bust. This is above the bust right here. Plot that down. Then measure your full bust, plot that down. If you have two sizes difference, for example, if my high bust measured 14 and my full bust measured 18, then you would use the full bust adjustment front that has the bust start. Now mine, you can see my high bust is a 14, my full bust is 16. I only have one size difference, but I'm going to be very generous with myself and just give myself that bust start because I know I'm going to appreciate it. I know I'm going to love it. And so I've just been a little bit more generous with the instructions here. You know, I have one more size, so I'm going to use that dart. It's not a big dart. I think it makes a difference and I'm glad it's there. And all the patterns that have this type of instruction for Pattern Emporium, I know I don't fit quite into using the bust dart, but I still use it and I still like it. Now you see there that my waist goes into a 16, but that doesn't really matter. Then my hips go back to a 14. It doesn't matter. It's a swing style. You have plenty of space over here. Now finished garment measurement. This higher area is the one that needs to feel comfortable, not too loose, not too fitted, and get 3 extra inches of ease around this area, which I think is really good. I measured the pattern pieces and going down towards the waist, you have about 12 inches of ease, down to the hips about 15. So it is essentially very roomy. I would not size down with this pattern because that could end up being too small and too tight for you. I would just make this fit properly. Everything here is going to fit amazingly. And then it's just part of the style. You're just going to have a lot of room at the bottom. And I think that is amazing. There's specific days where I will gladly wear a very nice loose dress that's flowy and fresh. So I really love the style and I wouldn't want to make it tighter or slimmer fitting down at the bottom because it's just not part of a swing style. The only fitting adjustment really was to add my own custom lengths. For the top, I took the line that says mini dress and I cut it 8 inches shorter just to have a reference. And then I thought I could make it shorter. You know, I can adjust as when I try it on because it's hard to know measuring the pattern pieces because you're missing the straps and everything. So I just cut it 8 inches shorter, 20 centimeters shorter, and I was quite happy with the result there. For my dress, I wanted above the knee. So from the mini dress line right there, I added 12 centimeters or 6 inches. Now, because you get to try on at the end and adjust the straps and everything, I was pretty sure I was going to want mine a little higher just to cover a little bit over here. So in preparation for that, I just dropped my bust up by 3/4 of an inch just to be on the safe side. Because if you leave it in the original position there and then you hike up your dress to make the strap shorter to have more coverage here, you might end up with a dart above the bust. So I didn't want that. And so that's why I lowered my bust dart by 3/4 of an inch. And I'm really happy it turned out perfect. I got the straps that I want, the length that I want, and the bust dart at the correct position. It's a bit of an experiment, and I did that with my first one, which is the top. I have filmed the sewing for you. We're using 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to show you the main construction steps for the easier type of neckline. The same steps apply for the other neckline. I'm also going to show you the most important parts, which is when you get to sewing these V points. So let's see this fun sew. What you see on the table are not facing pieces. These are actually yokes. These are going to go on the top part of the dress. The dress will continue here. And this is the front one. That's the back one. The difference between them is the shape, of course, but also you have notches here at the bottom so you don't get confused. So on the front yoke, you have single notches over here. On the back yoke, you have double there so that you know. You also have double notches here on the top. This is the square neckline option that I'm sewing right here. You need 2 layers. One is interfaced, one isn't. So I've got 2 layers right here on top, right sides together, ready to be cut out in one go. I'm doing block fusing. In order to be able to do that, I just put paper on this other side so I have an extended piece and I don't need to cut on the fold. I always block fuse to keep the shape of everything that I'm sewing so that if the fabric reacted to the glue and it shrunk a little bit, that's already happened. I do it like this all the time and it's not going to be any different in this one. Make sure to do all your marks. Sometimes if you forget to do them, you might end up getting confused and sewing the back yoke to the front, etc. I'm also going to be marking the center using a friction pen over here. I'm also going to write a big obnoxious F here everywhere so that I know this is the front. So front. These are the 2 pieces for the straps. We don't interface these because the sturdiness of the strap will come from all the layers in the strap. We fold it lengthwise in half like that, wrong sides together. And then we do that again. So we're going to end up with 4 layers of fabric in the strap. Hence, no interfacing needed. You're not going to have to turn this right sides out. None of that. So now we just bring the raw edge to that fold there and press again. I'm going to do it one side first and then the other so I don't burn myself that much. And then this side like that. So we're basically meeting the raw edges in the center here. And there it's already done. When all the creases are done, this fabric presses beautifully. And then all we have to do is top stitch. These are the pattern pieces for the Go With The Flow dress from Pattern Emporium. I am going to make a dress version, but I also want to make a top version. All I did was cut it shorter. That's it, nothing different. The construction of the neckline is going to be all the same. This is the front. I do have the version with a bust dart because I like bust darts, so that's what I've got. And I have already lowered this bust dart by 3/4 of an inch. I did that empirically. I'm going to test that with this version. Because the fit is nice and loose and it swings out, it would be quite easy for me to reshape this in case I needed to, but I have a sneaky suspicion that I needed to lower it, so I've already done that. The back is supposed to have a center back seam on the pattern, but I had enough of this fabric that I was able to cut it on the fold. So all I did was fold that seam allowance away. I also didn't want to cut into this beautiful print, so mine is on the fold there. These are the 2 yoke pieces for the front. 2 yoke pieces for the back. One is interfaced, one isn't. I've already shown you how I prepared the straps. I'm going to be doing fixed straps, but I'm still going to need 2 rings on the back. This is another presser foot. This has an L on it. It's also a type of blind hem presser foot, but different. When you move this, it moves this edge in or out. So you can actually get whatever seam allowance you want, and it's really helpful. I've set it here to about 1/8 of an inch. I had already prepared the straps in advance. I've shown you that. So now I'm edge stitching it and closing this up. I'm going to edge stitch on both sides. The process is the same if you're doing the narrow straps. I'm just doing the wider straps because I want it to cover my bra strap. From both of these straps, we need to cut a little piece off for the one that's going to have the ring at the back, and we need to measure 6 centimeters. This is very easy to do in metric. I do have a tape that has that on the other side as well, so use whatever you find comfortable. So this is going to be the strap, and this is what we're going to use for the rings. We just need to put this little strap through the ring like that, and then this is going to get caught between both layers of the yoke on the back. And then later when we're fitting ourselves and adjusting the length of the strap, the rest of the strap is going to come and go through that ring again like that. So that's how we're going to be able to regulate the length of this one at the back. I'm going to give it a quick baste just to keep it together right there. This is the front, and I'm stay stitching the top edge because this needs to be stable. It's going to have the yoke sewn onto it in a sec. So we don't want this to stretch out. I'm sewing from the side into the center. And I'm using 3/8 seam allowance, regular stitch length. There's the mark of the center, and that's where I'm going to stop. And then I'm going to flip the fabric and start from the side into the center again. That's just to keep it symmetrical. This was the front, so now I have to do the back. Very similar for this version. General construction, I've just chosen to construct this first and then do the neckline, but you can assemble a neckline and then do this. It doesn't really make a difference. Stay stitching done. I've done the bust darts right there. I started sewing from the tip of the dart to the widest part, and now I've got the side seams pinned. I'm going to sew those, 3/8 seam allowance, press it open, and then I'm going to leave this aside and start assembling the neckline. That's what I'm going to focus on the most. This is the back yoke. This is the interfaced layer. This is the non-interfaced layer. This straight edge, I'm not concerned about it stretching, but this armhole area is curved. So I'm going to go the extra mile, and I'm just going to stay stitch both layers. And it's the same for the front. I'm going to just stay stitch these areas just to keep them safe. All the side seams of these pieces, you don't need to finish them because they will end up being enclosed. So don't worry about that. Okay, here are both the yoke pieces. I've aligned the interfaced ones together, front and back, right sides together, and the non-interfaced ones over here. Now we have 4 tiny side seams to sew and press open. Then we get to unite these two and insert the straps and this little unit that has a ring on it in between. What we have here are both the layers. I have already pressed the side seams open here, match them up, put one inside the other so that both layers are right sides together, matching the back. It's very easy. I have beads there to mark the back, same as on this side. So I pinned it all the way around, but I'm going to remove a few pins now to insert what's going to go in the middle right here. Now, we had previously made these little straps with rings on them. These are going to go on the back section. So I'm just going to insert this over here in between, right there up to where I have that understitching because that's the seam allowance. And I'm going to put another pin to hold that one there at the back, same as on this other side. So those are in there. They're going to get caught when we sew all of this. And now let's go over to the front. And this is where we insert the long straps we'd made previously. And the other one, right. So now we have on the front the straps hanging down, and on the back we have these little straps with the ring right there. So now we can just go ahead and sew this 3/8 seam allowance all the way around. As I'm sewing these two layers, I've got the interface side on top because it's more stable than the one at the bottom. Going around all these shapes, 3/8 seam allowance, being careful to pivot at each point where I have a strap. These armhole areas are curved, so we're going to snip into them right here so that there won't be tension when we flip this to the other side. Now, if you're doing the other option with a V, the process is the same. Putting the straps in the middle, stay stitching, sewing the layers and then putting them right sides together. It's just that the shape that you're sewing on the top is different. But up to here, it would be the exact same thing. Now we're going to understitch. Now we won't be able to do it all in one go. We're going to have to stop in some sections because of the straps, but the more section that gets understitched, the better. So we've got the seam allowance underneath the interface side here because that is the inner layer. So you could see here, I'm going to have to stop. I'm going to get the strap out of the way and continue after the strap. I've got this whole unit right here, and I've got the section that was already sewn facing down. The raw section is facing up. Flipped it, pressed it, and I hand basted it all around the edge so it acts as one piece. You can also baste it with a machine. I just prefer to do it by hand because it's easier to remove later. There were little marks inside, single and double notches that I made sure to mark on the outside because that's how I need them to be. So if you want to follow along, just make sure your straps and everything are hanging down this way, that you can see the understitching because that's going to be the layer that's on the inside. The smooth layer is going to be in there. That's going to be the visible layer. I've got the back right here. I know because I don't have any bust darts, so I know that this is the back. And I'm just going to slide this in inside this area right there. Match it up, right sides together. And now we're just going to start matching up all the reference points. You can see there's a little mark right here. It's going to match the mark I've got over here and so forth. Match up the side seams and pin it all the way around. And then we're going to sew it all the way around. Now this one's easier because there's just curves everywhere. There's no V points like on the other one. But I'm going to show you how to sew those V points when I get to my second version. Okay, that took a while. There's a lot of curves to deal with, but everything fits properly. Make sure your straps are on the same side as your bust darts if you have them, or if you don't have bust darts, make sure you mark somewhere that what is the front, what is the back. Also, your notches are going to help you match it up. Remember, on the back, there are double notches in some places, like this one right there. So make sure everything's good. And now we're going to sew it all the way around 3/8 seam allowance. After doing this really nice long seam full of curves, just be careful you keep the 3 raw edges together at all times, lots of pins and going slowly. I'm going to go ahead and serge all of these layers so that it's all neatly finished. Then I'm going to remove that basting stitch, give it a press, and then I have to regulate the length of my strap and put it through the ring that's at the back. I fiddled with this, trying it on and trying to balance how much underarm coverage around the armhole and also getting this bust dart to sit at the correct place without it going too high, because you could shorten this a lot, and the more you shorten it, the higher the bust dart comes. That's one of the reasons I lowered it to begin with, because I knew that I was probably going to want a little bit of a shorter strap to get a bit more cover here underneath the armhole. So I, in essence, have all this excess to cut off. I've tried this on. I'm happy. I'm very, very satisfied with this length. So I've got the fold here inside the ring, and I'm going to leave about 1 inch in there, and then I'm going to trim everything away. So this is the excess. And now because both straps are the same, everything's the same, I'm just going to get this other one, put this here and cut off the same amount. Now these raw areas, I'm going to serge that, finish that up, and then fold this back up over here. And then we just do a little stitch right there. There it is, serged. I've pinned it, put a lot of pins, and now I'm just going to stitch across. I'm going to increase my stitch length here because we're going through a few layers. And check this out. It's a brown type of coffee tone. I don't know what type of tone this is, but it's got a lot of flower prints on it with lots of colors. And for me, when I saw this fabric at the shop, it looked like someone had splashed paint and like did artwork on the fabric. And I really, really love that. So look at this. So beautiful. I only had 1 meter and that was enough to make this. Here is my strap, the straight area, the curve, and how the yoke at the bottom follows the same shape right here on the front. There is my bust dart, and at the back, we have the same curves like this, like that, and it's so beautiful. There is a little strap with a ring that holds this. Now, there's no way that you could enclose both strap pieces with this construction method. You can't really try it on beforehand. So that's why you need this ring and this little thing. Even if you're doing a fixed strap like I am, I'm not doing an adjustable one. This is easy to see on the inside. You see the yoke is in 2 layers like that. Now the inner yoke is the interfaced layer, the outer yoke is the non-interfaced layer. I did it as per the instructions, but for my second dress, I did it the opposite way. I did the outer layer interface and the inner layer not interfaced, and that has got to do with the fabrics that I chose. So I'll show you that. But yeah, simple, seams pressed open, little hem, beautiful. Love how it turned out. Let's see it on. This is my go with the flow dress slash top. I just cut it shorter so I could have a top. I only had 1 meter of this rayon twill and it's lovely. This time I have the square neckline option, which is the easier option to do. There's also yoke pieces there on the top, and then the flowiness of the top is really good. There's so many colors here in this print. I chose navy to just tone everything down. There is some blue in there, so I think this looks great. Plus I love the combination of that caramel color, which is the background color of the print with the navy. So that's what I decided to do. I didn't want to use any other color on my bottoms or else it would have been too much. There is the straight yoke and then it curves underneath for the armhole. 2 layers from the yoke. Same wide strap option. Of course, there's a narrow strap, and my buster I think fits really well there on the side. I really love how this looks. I feel really fresh. I'm very comfortable showing this amount of skin. It's the most I would. So this is great for me and I love how this looks. It's an amazing top. It was a very small piece of fabric though, so adorable. Here is my same go with the flow dress slash top, this time with flared jeans. I kept it nice and fitted at the waist and hips because this top has all the volume with the swing style. So I wouldn't have wanted to wear wide leg pants or something. So I think this is great. It's another way I can wear it to go out somewhere and feel really nice. I think this fabric makes a huge statement. It's like a work of art. It's like someone painted the flowers onto the rayon twill. That's how it looks like to me. And I think it's really, really pretty. Love this neckline as well. It's a little bit higher than the other one. And of course, it's easier to sew than the V.1, but both are beautiful. Love them. Flowiness, the freshness of this is amazing. I love this fabric so much. It's not the typical one I would use, but I think it's really striking. This is the back piece and I'm doing the V neckline option. All you have to do with the pattern piece here is fold it under. There's a little line for you to fold back. It's the same pattern piece as for the other neckline. And what I've done here is just leave a little bit of extra fabric here. With this one, I am doing the center back seam and I just want to interface this area to stabilize it. It's cut here diagonally, so there's some bias to this area. So I've cut straight strips of interfacing and I'm just going to fuse this on all on this section. I'm going to be sure to cover the area that I want when I trim off that extra fabric. Because this interfacing is straight, it's eliminated that bias stretch right there. And I'm going to do that on this side as well. So now that all that area is interfaced, I'm going to finish trimming there and there and there. Okay, here is the yoke unit, this time with the V shape, but the process of putting it together was exactly the same. The outer layer is made out of linen and the inner layer is made out of cotton. I used a little scrap left of this that I had lying around. I think it's really pretty and it matches my print. I have the back here and you can see the straps already sandwiched in between. Instead of a ring, I'm using this little thing that I found in my stash from an old bra. So instead of a ring, I'm going to use this, and this is where the strap is going to go through later. It's going to look really nice. That's the front. There's the strap. I did the same process, you know, sewed both layers together, snipped, understitched, all those things. And at the bottom, I've got both layers together. I've sewn them together like that. It's a type of stay stitch here because we are going to be snipping into these areas there. So I decided to do this as a stay stitch instead of hand basting like the other one. The reason the other one was hand basted was because it was just a slight curve. So that's the yoke. What comes underneath is this. This is my print. I do have the center back seam on this one, and because we needed to snip into that V, I didn't sew it all the way up. So I started 3/8 of an inch below so that we have that opening there anyway. That's a nice tip for you. And everything is stay stitched as well. You can see the little bit of interfacing there. No one's ever going to see it. It's white, it's discreet, but it helps keep this area nice and stable. This is how the V point looks for the center front and for the center back. So you would have cut into the main fabric for the center front right there, extended it. And now we're going to sew here, pivoting, and right there. I'm only going to do a tiny little bit per V point just to get it sewn, and then I'm going to come back and do all the rest. Now on these other ones that are underneath the straps, for example, you have this V point, then it's different because you snip into the yoke piece and not the main dress. And then you have the same situation only on this other side. I think a shorter stitch length is also helpful here. It's important to throw all this seam allowance away so you don't get a pucker right there. And I like to hand crank after that critical section and then keep going. So that's how that looks. You can see we just move the seam allowance away to one side and just go in there and pivot. And now from this side, it's going to look like that. Super nice. So that's one V. So I would do the center back exactly the same. This is one of the ones that is underneath the strap where we have the main fabric underneath and the yoke in the front. So here it's going to be the exact same thing. So that's how that looks. And then from the right side, it's going to look like this little point underneath the strap. Now this is for both sides on the front, both sides on the back. It's the same process. So let's continue doing them. I've got 4 more little V's to do. They are all the same. I'm just going to take my time. Once I've got them, I'll pin the rest and then keep sewing the rest. Pin the rest of the neckline. I'm going to sew it with this side up because it's easier for me to see when I started and stopped in these areas. Here on the blue side, I can't really see a thing. So I will just be sewing little sections like this and lots of them. There I can see where I had already reinforced, so I'll just go up to there. So this neckline is definitely going to take a lot longer. It's got areas that you need to be careful with. It'll take dedication and precision, but it's going to be so striking. I think it's totally worth it. The other one that's got the curves, much more simple to sew, so you can do that one to test the waters and then go off and do 6 V points here. This is my dress. I love doing the yoke in a contrasting color because you can really see the V points. You know, it took a little while to do. I really wanted it to be seen. And I think you would see it with a solid, but when you use a print, you sort of lose it a little bit. So I had this little bit left over from making some pants. It was just enough to cut these pieces on the outside and the straps, but I didn't have enough to cut the inner layers. So on the inner layer, I have this cotton shirting, really nice cotton linen blend in there, a little bit more structured. I did decide to interface the outer edges here. I thought this rayon, which was a little bit loosely woven, would just work better and look smoother and more structured. My other rayon twill wasn't loosely woven. I didn't feel it was behaving badly. So that's why I inverted it here. It doesn't really matter. No method here is right or wrong. It's just the preference of the designer. So that's what I decided to do here. My outer layer is interfaced. My inner layer is not interfaced. And you saw the process, all the little V points. It's like sewing a V neck band, only 6 times. So I dedicated time to sewing the V points only, little sections, little sections, little sections, getting those right, and then sewing in between in sections. So that's what got this result. I think it's beautiful. That's the back. I didn't use a ring this time. I used this other notion that I found, which was great. It's navy. Did not have a navy ring. Didn't want to use any other color. So that's good. And this is just a rayon twill. It's sort of a satiny look. It's got a slight sheen that you can't see, but it's absolutely gorgeous, very flowy. It's a weird animal print type of thing, but with colors in there. That's how it looks like on the other side. And because of all the V points, you see that I did a little bit of extra interfacing there on the neckline, which you can't see from the inside at all. It's all covered with the seam allowance. You know, it doesn't look ugly from here. You can't see that there's interfacing over here on the rayon fabric. So I'm glad I did that because it made the process so much easier. I knew this wasn't going to stretch and carry on. You know, I did stay stitching as well. I pulled out all the stops basically to get that dress piece to retain its shape and size and not stretch out and not fit my yoke piece over here. So super nice experience. Love how it turned out. Let's see it on. It feels amazing on. This is my go with the flow dress from Emporium. I've sewn a straight size 14 with the full bust option with a bust dart on the front. It's a swing style dress, super flowy. I've got a rayon twill here. And then the yoke that is part of the neckline is made out of linen rayon blend. Super pretty. I love that contrast because you can really see this yoke and the shape it has with all the V points. Really pretty, easy fit, easy wear, super fresh, super breezy. I made the mini length a little bit longer because I didn't want a mini length dress or a maxi, so it's really easy to cut in the middle and get whatever length you want. There's a center back seam right there. I'm sure you can tell how flowy this is. Check out this neckline. I have adjusted the straps to my liking. I'm quite happy with the coverage here. You know, this is a personal preference, and I think here I'm perfectly covered up, no bra showing, nothing like that. The fit above the bust is super comfortable, and I love that contrast navy. Goes perfectly with my print. And I'm happy I did this because you can really see what's going on. Otherwise, I would have just had to use a solid, and I really wanted to use that print. So this is how I can get away with it, by mixing materials and doing a little bit of color blocking. It's breezy to wear. I can't wait to get out of my house in this dress. Plus, it's really hot right now. Now, of course, let's see it with a belt. This is a blue leather belt. It goes a little bit shorter if you put a belt, a little bit of blousing happening there, but definitely one way I could wear it if I wanted to have a little bit of waist definition, and also if I wanted to put a topper layer on top. Otherwise, I would be very happy to wear it just loose like it is. I think it looks cute like this as well, so it's always good to have options, and belts are always great. I have them in every single color. I wouldn't wear a dress like this with a jacket on top without the belt. I do want to give myself some waist definition in there, especially when the dress is swing style and has so much volume. So this way I feel I'm more balanced. This is a shorter jacket made out of linen, the downtown jacket, also from Emporium. I think it goes really well. I really wouldn't want to wear a jacket that's longer than this one, just because of the volume of the skirt and the amount of ease that we have here. So this is great. I love it. They go together beautifully, and it's another way I can wear this gorgeous new dress with a little jacket if I want some extra cover for a spring or an autumn day. Love how this looks. Love how they turned out. This square neckline definitely took less time to do than this one, but both are beautiful. This is really worth it. Look how striking. So if you want a mix, then mix it up. Do the V in the front, the back, do this one. You can mix them up as well. So lovely, such a lovely fit, and it's great for the weather over here. If it's still too cold for you, you can wear a layer underneath and just wear a jacket on top and enjoy it the whole year round. So I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend. Great instructions, great fit. Everything you already know about Emporium. I'm really happy, really satisfied. No fitting issues, nothing like that. So it was really enjoyable, really relaxing. That's all from me. I'll see you soon with more sewing on this fun channel. Make sure you subscribe. See you then. Bye.